I want you to picture something with me. It's, I don't know, 2:00 a.m. The house is totally quiet. Everyone else is asleep. And the only light in the room is just the glow from your laptop screen.
Mm-hmm.
You started out maybe, 3 hours ago? Just looking up, let's say the history of the Federal Reserve, or, maybe just scrolling Twitter. But then you clicked a link, and then another one.
Ah, the rabbit hole. We've all hovered at the edge of it.
Exactly. And suddenly you're on some forum you've never even seen before, reading a PDF that looks like it was scanned in a basement back in 1994. And you get this feeling, It's not just curiosity, it's almost physical. A kind of rush, because you're looking at all these disparate things, a symbol on a dollar bill, a flight log from a private jet, some weird background detail in a press conference, and for the very first time, they don't look random at all.
They look like a map.
Yes, they look like a map.
That moment, that aha moment where all the chaos of the world suddenly just resolves into a clear, simple picture that is one of the most seductive psychological experiences a human being can have. It really does feel like an epiphany.
It feels like you're the detective in a noir movie, You're the only one who sees the strings. And today, we are going deep on that feeling. We're talking about conspiracy theories. But listen, before you roll your eyes or, check to see if your tinfoil hat is on straight, we aren't here to just dunk on people who believe the earth is flat.
No, that would be way too easy and, frankly, not very useful. We want to do something a little different. We want to take apart the engine of belief itself.
The engine of belief. I like that.
We've got a whole stack of research here, psychology, sociology, some history, and even some really fascinating mathematics that helps explain why rational people can believe really impossible things.
And we're going to look at the how. How do these theories actually work? How do they trap you? And I think, most importantly, if you have an uncle or a friend who is right now completely convinced that birds are government surveillance drones.
A classic.
A classic, yes. And by the way, real birds do exist. How do you actually talk to them without completely ruining Thanksgiving?
It is a massive topic. I mean, it touches on everything from how we process information to how we trust each other to how we deal with the terrifying randomness of the world.
So let's start at the very beginning. Let's start with definitions. Because I feel like the term conspiracy theorist has just become this slur we throw at anyone we disagree with.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you don't like my tax policy. You must be a conspiracy theorist.
It is often used that way, yes. But we need to be precise here. You see, in the cold, hard light of the legal system, a conspiracy is a very real thing. It's just a secret plan by two or more people to do something unlawful or harmful.
Right. So 2 guys planning to rob a liquor store. That's a conspiracy.
Precisely. Or, corporate price fixing. Or Watergate. Watergate's the classic example, right?
Yeah.
You had men meeting in parking garages, hush money, a break-in, a cover-up involving the president himself. That was a real conspiracy.
But it wasn't a conspiracy theory.
No, not in the way we use the term now, because it was proven. We had the tapes, we had the court cases, the evidence was there.
So the difference is just the evidence? Is that it?
It's more about the relationship to the consensus of experts. A conspiracy theory, in the academic sense, is what's called a lay theory. It's a hypothesis that's proposed by non-experts, and it directly contradicts the mainstream explanation provided by the relevant institutions. The government, the scientific community, historians, and so on.
Okay, so it's basically the experts all say X, but I, a guy with the blog, am telling you it's actually Y.
Exactly, and there's a really crucial structural difference, too. A real investigation, a scientific inquiry, is open to falsification.
Meaning you can prove it wrong.
Yes. If the police think you robbed the bank, but then they find clear video footage of you at a restaurant clear across town at the exact same time, they have to drop the theory. They have to.
Well, unless they're bad cops, but generally, yeah.
Generally, yes.
Yeah?
But a conspiracy theory, it's designed to be self-sealing. It is what philosophers call epistemically self-insulated.
Okay, that sounds really fancy. Unpack that for me. What does that mean?
It means the theory has a built-in immune system against facts. So let's say you believe in a massive cover-up about aliens.
Okay.
If I show you an official document from the Air Force that says, we have found no evidence of aliens, you don't say, oh, I guess I was wrong.
No, I say, see, that proves the cover-up. They created a fake document to throw us off the trail.
Exactly. The evidence against the theory becomes evidence for the conspiracy.
And the absence of evidence does the same thing, right? If you can't find the secret alien base, it just proves how good they are at hiding it.
You got it. It's a completely circular trap. You can't get out.
You can't win an argument with logic because the logic of the theory it eats all the counter arguments.
It does. And this leads to something called cascade logic.
Cascade logic. Is that where the conspiracy has to keep getting bigger and bigger to survive?
Yes, precisely. Imagine you believe a local politician was framed for a crime. Then, the forensic lab produces DNA evidence that matches the politician.
Okay.
Now, for your theory to survive, you can't just believe the politician is innocent. You have to believe the forensic lab is corrupt, too.
Right. They're in on it.
Then the judge accepts the DNA evidence. Now the judge is in on it. Then the local paper reports on the verdict. Now the media is in on it.
So it starts with just like three guys in a room and ends up with 3,000 people involved?
It cascades.
Yeah.
It has to, until it encompasses basically everyone in a position of authority, except for the believer, of course.
Now, speaking of things people believe, I have to bring this up because I am guilty of this. I've said this at parties. I've definitely repeated this fact.
No.
The idea that the term conspiracy theory was actually invented by the CIA in 1964, specifically to discredit people who were asking legitimate questions about the JFK assassination.
It is one of the most popular meta-conspiracy theories out there. The idea that the very language we use is a psyop.
But it makes so much sense, right? It's such a convenient way to dismiss someone. Oh, stop it with your conspiracy theories. It just shuts down the conversation. So come on, did the CIA cook this up?
I hate to be the bearer of bad news for a good story, but no, they absolutely did not. We have the receipts on this, and they go back way, way further than the Kennedy administration.
How far back are we talking?
We can trace the phrase conspiracy theory in print all the way back to 1863.
1863, that's the middle of the Civil War.
It is. There was a letter to the editor in the New York Times. This is January 11th, 1863, and it was written by an author named Charles Astor Bristed. He was discussing British politics and their potential involvement in the American Civil War, and he explicitly uses the phrase conspiracy theory to describe a specific political interpretation of events.
So unless the CIA has a time machine...
Unless the CIA was active during the Battle of Gettysburg, no, they didn't invent it, and it pops up again and again in academic circles. In 1909, the American Historical Review used it. It was just a neutral, descriptive term.
So it didn't have the baggage it has now?
Not at all. It just meant a theory that posits a conspiracy. It didn't carry that tinfoil hat lunatic connotation that it does today, but the phrase was definitely in the lexicon.
That's actually really important context, because if the term has been around for 160 years, it means this isn't just a product of the internet age or the CIA, it's a human thing.
It is.
Which, of course, leads us to the big question. Why? Why are our brains so wired to buy into this stuff?
For that, we have to go way back. We have to go back to the savannah. We have to go back to when we were hunter-gatherers.
Okay, I'm putting on my loincloth. I'm holding a spear. What am I looking for?
You were looking for patterns. Survival is all about pattern recognition. You see clouds gathering on the horizon. You predict rain. You see certain footprints in the dirt. You predict a gazelle is nearby. But here's the problem. Our brains are tuned to be hypersensitive.
So it's better to see a pattern that isn't really there than to miss one that is.
Exactly. This is a concept called illusory pattern perception. Imagine you're walking through some high grass. You hear a rustle. Now, it could just be the wind, or it could be a tiger.
Right. If I think it's a tiger and I run away, but it was just the wind, I feel a little silly, but I'm still alive.
Correct. That is what's known as a type I error, a false positive. The cost is really low. You wasted some calories running. But if you make a type 2 error, you assume it's the wind, but it's actually a tiger.
Have lunch.
You are lunch. You are out of the gene pool.
So evolution basically selected for the paranoid.
Evolution selected for the ancestors who saw faces in the rocks, who heard voices in the wind, and who assumed every rustle in the grass was a tiger. We are quite literally the descendants of the paranoid. We have a biological imperative to connect the dots, even when there are no dots to connect.
And that bleeds into how we view the news, right? There's a term for it, agency detection.
Yes, we hate randomness. As a species, we have a profound psychological aversion to the idea that things just happen, especially big, terrible, world-changing things.
This is the crisis and control theory.
Think about 9/11, or the assassination of JFK, or a global pandemic. These are events that shatter our sense of normalcy. They change the course of history.
And the idea that, say, 9/11 was caused by just 19 guys getting lucky with box cutters, or that one lone sad gunman like Lee Harvey Oswald could just take out the most powerful man in the world, it feels wrong.
It feels disproportionate. A huge effect demands a huge cause.
Sure.
Our brains really struggle to accept that a loser with a cheap mail-order rifle can change history. It creates immense anxiety because it implies the world is chaotic and fragile and unsafe.
So the conspiracy theory is actually comforting. That seems backwards.
In a dark way, yes. It is far more comforting to believe that a powerful, evil cabal, the Illuminati, the deep state, the Elders of Zion, whatever, orchestrated these events. Because if they are in charge, at least someone is in charge.
It means there's a plan. It's an evil plan, for sure, but it's a plan. It's not just chaos.
Exactly. It restores a sense of order and control. You can fight an evil enemy. You can't fight random, meaningless chaos.
That makes a lot of sense.
Oh.
But there's another angle here I want to ask you about, the ego part of it. Because when I've talked to people who are really deep down the rabbit hole, there's this sense of, well, superiority. This feeling of, you sheeple are all asleep, but I am awake. I see the truth.
That is the need for uniqueness. And it's a huge, huge driver. We all want to feel special. We all want to feel like we're smart and capable and perceptive.
And if I just believe what the New York Times and CNN and the president are telling me, then I'm just like everybody else. I'm just one of 300 million people who believe the official story.
Right. But if I possess what researchers call stigmatized knowledge, if I know the real truth about the moon landing that's been hidden from everyone else, then suddenly I am elite. I am part of this tiny, special group of truth seekers. It gives you an instant self-esteem boost.
It's the imposter paradox turned inside out. You actually want to be the outsider because in this story, the outsider is the hero.
And this links directly to specific personality traits. Psychologists have found really strong correlations between a belief in conspiracy theories and something called the dark triad.
The dark triad sounds like a supervillain team from a comic book.
It might as well be.
Yeah.
It's a cluster of 3 personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy.
Oof, that's not a flattering list.
No. Specifically, narcissism is a big predictor. Narcissists are more likely to believe conspiracy theories because of that intense need for uniqueness. The logic is, I am special, therefore I must know the special truth. They also just tend to be more paranoid in general.
What about the projection aspect? I remember reading about Richard Hofstadter's work on this, his famous essay.
Hofstadter wrote the seminal essay, The Paranoid Style in American Politics, back in 1964. And he argued that conspiracy theorists often project their own unacceptable impulses onto their enemies.
So if you're a person who craves power, who would manipulate other people to get what you want, you just naturally assume that everyone else in power is doing the same thing.
Yes, exactly. We see this mirroring all the time. The person screaming that the government is a secret cult trying to control everyone is often, well, they're busy trying to organize a secret group to control everyone.
Wow.
But the most fascinating psychological finding, for me, is the concept of the monological belief system.
Okay, is this the idea that if you believe one, you believe them all?
It's that, but it's even weirder than that. It's not just that you believe many different theories. It's that you're more likely to believe theories that directly contradict each other.
Wait, what? Okay, give me an example of that.
There was a famous study done at the University of Kent. They asked people about the death of Princess Diana. And they found that the people who believed Diana was murdered by MI6
Right, a common theory.
were also more likely to believe that Diana faked her own death and is still alive living on a private island somewhere.
Hold on, she was murdered by the Secret Service, and she faked her own death to escape the press. She can't be both dead and alive.
Logically, no. Of course not. But psychologically, yes. Because the core underlying belief isn't Diana is alive or Diana was murdered. The core belief is simply the official story is a lie.
I see. So as long as you were rejecting the official claim that she died in a tragic car accident, it doesn't matter what you replace it with, even if the replacements totally clash.
Exactly. It's not about building a coherent alternative history. It's about maintaining a coherent feeling of distrust. The content of the theory is almost secondary to the act of rejecting authority.
That is. Man, that explains so much about the internet comments section. Okay, so we know why we fall for it. Let's talk about what we're falling for, because not all conspiracies are created equal, right?
No, not at all. They come in different flavors. Jesse Walker, who's an editor at Reason magazine, came up with a really great taxonomy. He calls them the 5 kinds of conspiracy theories.
I love a good list. Let's break them down. What's the first one?
First, you have the enemy outside. This is the absolute classic, the barbarians at the gate.
So this is the James Bond villain, or, foreign invaders.
Right. It's figures scheming from outside your community to destroy it. During the Cold War, it was the Soviets. Today, you hear it in rhetoric about foreign influences or globalists coming to destroy national sovereignty.
Okay, so what's number 2?
The enemy within. Now, this
Yeah.
one is much scarier.
Yeah.
This is the idea that your neighbor, who looks like you and talks like you, is secretly one of them.
The McCarthy era. The Red Scare. Are you now, or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
Precisely. Or you can go back to the Salem witch trials. The idea that the threat is indistinguishable from the average citizen. It breeds this intense, corrosive suspicion of your own peers.
Okay. Then there's the enemy above.
And this is really the dominant mode of the modern era. Powerful elites, the government, the billionaires, the corporations, manipulating events from on high for their own game.
The man, basically. The idea that the strings are all being pulled from the penthouse suite.
Exactly. Then you have the opposite, the enemy below. This is the fear that the lower classes or marginalized groups are secretly organizing to violently overturn the social order.
You see this all through history, with fears of slave rebellions in the American South or the upper-class fear of a Bolshevik-style uprising.
Yes, it's the fear of the mob. And then finally the fifth kind, which is kind of the outlier, benevolent conspiracies.
Wait, benevolent? These are the good guys.
Yes. It's the belief in angels or friendly aliens or secret brotherhoods working behind the scenes to help humanity.
So this would be like the QAnon idea of white hats in the government who are secretly taking down the bad guys.
Exactly. It's still a conspiracy, a secret plan by a group, but the intent is salvation, not destruction. It's a hopeful paranoia, if you will.
That's Walker's list. But we also have to talk about the scope of these things, because there's a huge difference between, say, the CIA killed JFK and the lizard people run the entire galaxy.
Right, and that's where the work of Michael Barkun comes in. He distinguishes between, first, event conspiracies, which are limited to one specific time and place, like the JFK assassination.
Okay, that's simple enough.
Then you have systemic conspiracies. These are much broader. A group with a big goal, like taking over a country or establishing a new world order. Think about fears of the Freemasons or global communist plot.
And then there's the big one, the super conspiracy. That sounds like a Taco Bell menu item.
It's the unified field theory of paranoia. This is where you link everything. You take the JFK assassination, the 9/11 attacks, the creation of the Federal Reserve, UFOs at Roswell, and the Freemasons, and you say, these aren't separate things. They're all just tentacles of the same giant octopus.
This is David Icke territory, right? The shape-shifting reptilians.
It's hierarchical. The theory argues that the local bank manager reports to the politician, who reports to the Freemason, who reports to the Lizard King on the mothership. It simplifies the entire world. There's only one enemy, and that enemy is the cause of all suffering.
It's almost religious in its structure. It provides a devil for every problem.
It is absolutely a kind of secular religion. It replaces God with the conspirator.
Okay, so we have the definitions, we have the psychology, we have the types. Now we get to the part that I think is the most damning. The reality check.
Yeah.
The math. Because whenever I hear these huge theories, like the moon landing was faked, I always just think about the logistics. I mean, I tried to plan a surprise party for my wife with 5 friends, and one of them texted her the details by mistake 2 days before it happened.
Secrets are incredibly hard to keep.
But conspiracy theories rely on this idea that the government is somehow both incredibly incompetent. I mean, have you ever been to the DMV? And at the same time, hyper-competent, able to fool the entire world for 50 years without a single leak.
The competence contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
It's a central paradox. But we can go beyond just our intuition here. We can actually use math. There was a physicist at Oxford named David Robert Grimes who published a fantastic paper on this. He wanted to know, mathematically, how long can a secret of a certain size actually survive?
Love this study. Grimes equation.
Oh,
Okay,
boy.
break it down for us. How does it work?
So Grimes started with a basic statistical model, a Poisson distribution. He needed to find a variable for the intrinsic probability of a leak. To do that, he looked at 3 real, confirmed conspiracies that were eventually exposed to the public.
Okay, what were they?
The NSA's PRISM surveillance program, which was exposed by Edward Snowden, the infamous Tuskegee syphilis experiment, and a major FBI forensic scandal.
Right, so these were real secrets involving a lot of people that eventually did blow up.
Exactly. He analyzed how many people were involved in each and how long it took for the whistle to finally be blown. From that, he calculated the base probability that any single conspirator would spill the beans in a given year. And it turned out to be very, very low, about 4 in a million.
4 in a million? That sounds super secure.
It sounds secure if it's just one person, But math is cruel when you start adding people. The equation is exponential. As the number of people, which he called $9, increases, the time, $2, until failure drops like a stone.
Okay, so let's apply this. The moon landing, the big one.
Okay. To fake the moon landing in 1969, you couldn't just have 3 guys in a TV studio in the desert. You needed the thousands of rocket builders at NASA, the tracking station operators all over the world, the recovery crews in the Pacific, every single person at mission control. Grimes estimated that even with a very conservative count, you'd need about 411,000 people to be in on it to some degree.
411,000 people.
If you plug that $411,000 into his equation, the estimated time until the secret is exposed is 3.68 years.
3.5 years. So by 1973, someone would have talked.
Statistically, it's almost a certainty. A deathbed confession, a drunk brag at a bar, a disgruntled employee, a Snowden-style leak. The idea that over 400,000 people could stay completely silent for over 50 years is mathematically approaching zero probability.
What about the cure for cancer conspiracy? The idea that Big Pharma has a cure but is hiding it to keep selling chemo drugs.
Well, that would have to involve research scientists at every major pharmaceutical company, plus thousands of academic researchers at universities worldwide. Grimes estimated about 714,000 people would need to be in on that secret.
And the time to exposure?
About 3.17 years.
Wow. And the theory that climate change is a hoax, that all the climate scientists are lying to get grant money.
Even if you just count the core publishing climate scientists, about 29,000 people, the hoax would be exposed in under 27 years. But of course, to orchestrate a global hoax, you'd need the scientific bodies, the support staff. You're back up to over 400,000 people. Again, you're looking at under 4 years.
The math just doesn't work. It falls apart.
It completely falls apart. Conspiracies fail because people are people. We are social animals. We gossip. We have consciences. We get disgruntled. We make mistakes. The idea of a perfect silent wall of silence is a complete myth.
You know, I find that incredibly reassuring. It basically says the world isn't rigged, it's just messy.
That's a great way to put it.
But, and this is the big turn, just because a theory is mathematically impossible doesn't mean it's harmless. We treat these things like entertainment sometimes. Oh, look at the flat earth, guys, how funny. But there is a body count attached to this stuff.
There is a very real and in some cases a very high body count.
Right.
We absolutely have to talk about the consequences.
Let's start with HIV/AIDS, because this is the example that just stopped me in my tracks when I was prepping for this deep dive.
This is perhaps the most tragic example of a conspiracy theory entering government policy. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, South Africa was facing an absolutely exploding AIDS epidemic. But the president at the time, Thabo Mbeki, became convinced by a small group of fringe scientists, conspiracy theorists really, who claimed that HIV did not cause AIDS.
So, what did they think caused it then?
Poverty, malnutrition, or, and this is that enemy outside trope we talked about, that the antiretroviral drugs themselves were poison sent by Western pharmaceutical companies to harm Africans.
I can see the psychological hook there. Mbeki is a post-colonial leader. He has every historical reason to distrust Western powers.
Exactly. The theory fit his political worldview perfectly. It was a lay theory that flattered his deep suspicion of the West. So he rejected the global scientific consensus. His government delayed the rollout of life-saving antiretroviral drugs. They promoted garlic and beetroot as treatments instead of actual medicine.
And the cost? What was the human cost of that decision?
Researchers at Harvard did a comprehensive study. They estimated that this delay and this denialism led directly to approximately 330,000 preventable deaths.
330,000. That's not just a statistic. That's a genocide by ignorance.
And on top of that, an estimated 35,000 babies were born with HIV who could have been protected if their mothers had received the proper medication. This is what happens when epistemic self-insulation meets real political power.
We see a similar thing, maybe on a smaller scale, but still just as tragic, with the famine in Zambia.
Yes, back in 2002, Zambia was facing a severe famine. The United States offered thousands of tons of corn as food aid, but the Zambian government, which was heavily influenced by European anti-GMO activists spreading theories that genetically modified organisms were poison or a plot to sterilize the African population, rejected the food aid.
Just imagine that. Imagine being a starving parent in Zambia. There is food in a warehouse right down the road, but the government has locked the doors because of a rumor they heard from the internet.
People were literally eating leaves and roots while warehouses full of life-saving corn sat there locked up. It shows that these theories aren't just mental glitches. They are actual barriers to human survival.
And then there's the direct violence. It's not just passive harm like rejecting medicine. It can be very, very active.
Timothy McVeigh, the man who blew up the federal building in Oklahoma City in 1995, killing 168 people, including children. He was completely obsessed with the Turner Diaries and New World Order theories. In his mind, he believed he was striking a righteous blow against tyrannical secret government.
And more recently, January 6th.
The attack on the U.S. Capitol was driven almost entirely by the stolen election conspiracy theory. The people who stormed that building truly believed they were saving the country from a silent coup. If you genuinely believe a satanic cabal is stealing your democracy, then violence starts to feel like a rational response. It feels like self-defense.
Christopher Hitchens had that famous quote, something about exhaust fumes.
He called conspiracy theories the exhaust fumes of democracy.
What did he mean by that exactly?
I think he meant that in a free society where information is allowed to circulate without censorship, you are inevitably going to generate this waste product. People will misuse their freedom to spread lies and paranoia. It's the unfortunate price of living in a free society. But just because it's exhaust doesn't mean we should just breathe it in. It's toxic.
It poisons the whole room. Now, we've been very U.S.-centric so far, JFK, the moon landing, Jan 6. But I want to zoom out. Is this just an American glitch? Are we the only ones obsessed with the deep state?
Oh, absolutely not. This is a human universal. The specific flavor changes from culture to culture, but the underlying psychological mechanism is the same everywhere.
Let's look at Turkey. You mentioned something in the notes that I'd never heard of called the Severus syndrome.
This is fascinating. So you have to go back to 1920. The Ottoman Empire has just collapsed after World War I. The Allied powers, Britain, France, Italy, they signed the Treaty of Sèvres. This treaty basically carves up what we now know as Turkey. It leaves the Turks with just a tiny rump state in Anatolia and gives the rest to Greece, Armenia, the Kurds, and the European powers.
Okay, so a real deep historical trauma.
A massive foundational trauma. Now, the Turks fought a war of independence under Ataturk, and they overturned that treaty. They established the modern Republic of Turkey. But the fear of that treaty remained. The Severus syndrome is this deep-seated paranoid belief in Turkey that the West is always plotting to carve up their country again.
So if a foreign diplomat visits or if the currency drops, a Turkish citizen might immediately think, here we go, it's Severus 2.0.
Exactly. It dictates their foreign policy. It shapes how they view the Kurdish minority, the European Union, the United States. It's a kind of national conspiracy theory that holds the country together in a state of constant defensive anxiety.
What about in the Arab world? What does it look like there?
There, conspiracy theories often function as what the journalist Roger Cohen once called a refuge of the powerless. If you live in a country with a dictator, no free press, and a long, painful history of colonialism, you feel like you have no agency over your own life or your nation's destiny.
So blaming the CIA or Mossad for everything that goes wrong.
It explains your powerlessness without blaming yourself or your own leaders. The logic is we aren't failing because of our own internal issues. We are failing because the most powerful forces on earth are actively conspiring against us. It preserves a sense of dignity, but it also paralyzes any real progress.
And in China?
In China, you see a mix. You see state-sanctioned theories blaming hostile foreign forces, usually the U.S., for things like the protests in Hong Kong. But you also see these wild grassroots theories, like the persistent belief that the Rothschild family secretly controls the global currency and is trying to destroy China's economic rise.
The Rothschilds, they really are the greatest hits of conspiracy targets, aren't they?
The classics never go out of style, it seems.
Which brings us to the tool that spreads these hits faster than anything in history, the internet. I feel like we can't have this conversation without asking, is social media just destroying our brains?
You know, the research is actually mixed on whether people believe more theories now than they did in the past. I mean, remember, people genuinely believed in witches in the 1600s and it led to executions. But what is new is the speed and the networking.
Right. There's a concept I read about called data voids that really scares me.
This is a crucial concept for understanding how search engines can go wrong. Let's say a conspiracy theorist on a forum invents a brand new, scary-sounding term. Let's call it, I don't know, toxic sludge vax.
Okay, toxic sludge vax. Got it.
If you go to Google and you search for toxic sludge vax, well, the New York Times hasn't written an article about it.
Mm-hmm.
The CDC hasn't put up a fact check page. So the only results that come up are the conspiracy sites that invented the term in the first place.
So the search engine results make it look like the theory is confirmed. Look, all the top results say it's deadly.
Exactly. Because the reputable sources haven't had time to fill that informational void yet. It creates a dangerous trap for the casually curious person.
And then you have this thing called fusion paranoia.
This is what we see happening on platforms like Twitter X. You have the far left, who have a deep distrust of corporate globalization and intelligence agencies. You have the far right, who have a deep distrust of the deep state and global institutions. And they end up meeting in the middle.
The horseshoe theory. The two ends of the political horseshoe are actually closer to each other than they are to the center.
They might disagree on why they hate the system, but they are united in their belief that the system is fundamentally rigged.
Yeah.
So you see these bizarre online alliances where, new age hippies and heavily armed militia members are sharing the exact same anti-government memes.
Okay, so we have covered the what, the why, the who, and the where. Now comes the hardest part of all. The how. How do we fix this? What do we do?
This is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Let's try to role play this, because I think people need to hear what this actually sounds like in practice. Let's say we're at a family barbecue. I'm your cousin, and I start telling you, with total conviction, about the flat earths.
Okay, I'm ready. Set the scene for me.
Adopting a slightly defensive, earnest tone. Look, I know you're a smart guy, but you're just too trusting. Have you ever actually seen the curve yourself? I was watching this video, and if you zoom in on the horizon with the Nikon P1000 camera, ships don't disappear over the curve, they just get smaller.
Yeah.
The water is provably flat. NASA uses fisheye lenses on all their cameras to fake the curvature. Why do you think they won't let anyone go to Antarctica? Because that's where the ice wall is.
Calm, non-judgmental tone.
Wow.
That's really interesting. I haven't seen those specific videos with the Nikon camera. It sounds like you've done a lot of digging into this.
I have. I've spent months on this. And, the pilots, they admit it when they're off the record.
So what I'm hearing from you is that you feel like we're being lied to on this massive fundamental scale. That the images we see all the time, the blue marble from space, the satellite photos, that they're all manufactured.
Exactly. They're controlling the entire narrative.
I get that feeling sometimes. It really is hard to trust big institutions when we know for a fact they've lied about other things. I mean, look at WMDs in Iraq. Governments do lie.
Right. See, you get it. That's what I'm talking about.
I do get the suspicion. I really do. But here's the one thing I always struggle with, and maybe you can help me with it. It's just the sheer number of people. If there really is a giant ice wall around the Earth, that means every commercial pilot in the Southern Hemisphere, every shipping captain from Chile to Australia, every surveyor, every military sailor, they all have to be in on it. How did they keep thousands and thousands of commercial airline pilots from just snapping a photo with their iPhone and blowing the whole thing open?
Well, maybe they pay them off. Or, they threaten them.
Maybe. But my cousin is actually a pilot for Qantas. He flies that long route from Sydney to Santiago. And he's down. Well, he's terrible at keeping secrets. The man can't even keep a surprise birthday party under wraps. Do you honestly think he could hide the fundamental shape of the Earth for his entire 20-year career?
Breaking character. Okay, pause. I see exactly what you did there. That was really good.
What did you notice?
First, and most obviously, you didn't call me an idiot. You didn't just shout, "That's stupid, read a science book."
Rule number 1. Ridicule is the end of the conversation. The second I mock you, you retreat into your fortress and you will never listen to another word I say.
Right. And then you validated my feeling. You didn't validate my facts, but you validated my distrust. You said, governments lie. You sort of joined me on the enemy's side for just a second.
That's empathy. I have to acknowledge the emotional truth of what you're saying, which is I feel lied to and powerless before I can even begin to address the factual error.
And then you asked questions. You didn't lecture me about gravity or Foucault's pendulum. You asked me to explain the logistics of keeping all the pilots quiet.
I put the burden of proof back on you, but gently. I'm not attacking you. I'm inviting you to solve the puzzle with me. How do they keep my bumbling cousin silent? It forces you to think about the mechanism, not just the abstract theory.
And you offered me an off-ramp.
This is absolutely crucial. If I just bludgeon you with facts and prove you wrong, you feel stupid. And nobody wants to feel stupid. So I have to give you a way to change your mind without losing face.
How do you do that? What does that sound like?
You might say something like, it makes sense that a lot of people are asking these questions, especially because organizations like NASA have been so secretive in the past. It's natural and healthy to be skeptical. But I just think in this specific case, the logistics of a cover-up of that size just don't add up for me.
It reframes it completely. I'm no longer wrong and dumb. I'm a healthy skeptic who is correctly following the evidence.
Exactly. You allow them to keep their identity as a critical thinker while gently guiding them to a different conclusion.
That is so much harder and takes so much more patience than just dunking on them on Twitter.
It is hard work. It takes real emotional labor, but it's the only thing that has a chance of actually working.
What about preventing it in the first place? I've heard this term pre-bunking.
Inoculation theory. This is some of the most exciting research in the field right now. The idea is to warn people about the tactics of misinformation before they are ever exposed to the specific lie.
Okay, give me an example of that.
So if I teach you today about the logical fallacy of false balance, the media trick where they put one credentialed scientist and one total crank on stage and treat their opinions as equally valid.
Right.
If I explain that trick to you today, then tomorrow when you see a TV debate about climate change with one scientist representing the 99% consensus versus one guy funded by an oil company, you'll recognize the trick instantly.
Ah, I know this move. They are trying to manufacture a controversy where there isn't one.
Exactly. You inoculate the brain against the manipulation technique itself. It's like a vaccine for fake news.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the 1863 New York Times to the cold, hard math of the moon landing to the absolute tragedy of what happened in South Africa.
It's a heavy journey to take.
So if the listener takes away just 3 things from this entire deep dive, what should they be?
First, I'd say recognize that a tendency to believe in conspiracy theories is a feature, not a bug, of human psychology. We are pattern-seeking machines trying to find order in a chaotic world. It's not about stupidity, it's usually about anxiety and a need for control.
Okay. Number 2.
Trust the math. Large-scale secrets crumble under their own weight. The sheer friction of humanity, our incompetence, our gossip, our conscience, our mortality, makes these grand super conspiracies mathematically impossible to sustain.
And 3rd.
Empathy over ridicule every single time. If you want to pull someone you care about out of the rabbit hole, you don't throw rocks down at them, you throw them a rope. You have to try and understand the fear or the feeling of powerlessness that drove them down there in the first place.
I want to end with a final thought on that why. We talked about how these theories often come from a feeling of a lack of control, a lack of trust.
Yes. There was a concept proposed a while back by Cass Sunstein called cognitive infiltration, the idea that government agents should enter chat rooms to debunk theories.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly the wrong approach. It just confirms the paranoia. See? The feds are in here.
So what's the right approach? What's the real antidote?
The real antidote to conspiracy theories isn't just more facts. It's empowerment. It's building a society that's more trustworthy. If people feel they have a real voice, if they feel the system is actually listening to them, is working for them, if they have a seat at the table, they don't need to invent a shadow government to explain why they are suffering.
We have to fix the reality so people don't have to retreat into a fantasy.
Exactly. Fix the trust, and the theories will start to fade on their own.
That is a really powerful place to leave it. It's not just about debunking. It's about rebuilding.
Well said.
Thank you for going down this very deep rabbit hole with us, and more importantly, for helping us find the way back out.
It was a pleasure, as always.
Keep your eyes open, keep asking questions, but maybe, just maybe, check the math before you believe the birds are spies. We'll see you on the next deep dive.